paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. And I just recently got back from a trip to West Virginia. I was speaking at a conference there. And by the way, any trip to West Virginia is amazing for ghost hunters and paranormal anything. UFOs, cryptids, you got the wild man, you've got the Flatwoods Monster, you name it. Ghosts everywhere. The state's awesome, and you know how I feel about that because I've had, a dozen guests or more from West Virginia. Well, I went and I got to speak at a conference down there. It was really awesome in Beckley. Met a really interesting young lady. Her name is Theresa, and she is I'm going to call it creator of Theresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State. It is a blog. But guys, you need to get on it. There is a link. She's got a link on Facebook. You can also get it through the website, which I'll throw up here in a minute. But guys, you got to check this out. It has got a little bit of everything for everybody in the areas, especially around West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. That's kind of her zone. So Mothman, and got an interesting story about a Mothman investigation too. I hope to get out of her. So without going any further, let's talk to Theresa of Theresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being here. What you spoke about, and guys, unlike me, that's got all these videos and audios and gadgets, Theresa could sit on the stage and kept everyone just amazed with her stories. Just didn't need the extras like I do. She just had that audience in the palm of her hand. And your stories were awesome. So how long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've a little over 20 years. I really started this kind of in high school. And I've just been doing it ever since.
And you said you had a hard time, and I'm guessing this is probably back in the early 2000s.
Yes.
You were having a hard time even finding a group to learn from.
Yeah, so when I decided, okay, yeah, I think I want to, do the paranormal investigation thing. This was before TAPS was on the scene, the Ghost Hunter show was on. It wasn't something that people really did. Plenty of kids did the legend tripping thing where, we'd go out and try to find the local haunted places and all that stuff. But there wasn't anybody really in my area doing this like scientifically. So
at that time, was the lunatic asylum and the prison not doing ghost stuff?
Okay, so the lunatic asylum was completely just abandoned, and it was used by like the local police for like training and stuff like that. So you couldn't really get into there. Of course, everybody knew it was haunted. 2001, the penitentiary, I think, they had started doing, the historic stuff because they just shut down in like 95, I think. Right. I think they've started to embrace the ghost stuff and kind of, because it was on MTV Fear, and I think that's the first time I heard about it being haunted was on that show. But yeah, there was like 2 groups in West Virginia, and neither one of them were in my area.
And from what I heard when you were talking about it, one was actually kind of rude to you.
Well, I mean, they both weren't great. I sent in my fee, my $30 fee for the one. Never heard back from them. Have no idea if they ever got it or not, but I was out the $30. And then the other one actually was kind of near my area, and they had a website, and they had posted on their website some pictures of what they were calling, paranormal activity. and it was a location that I was familiar with. And I went to this location, took my own pictures, and sent it to him, just out, like trying to be friendly. Like, hey, I don't think this is a ghost. You can clearly see this is a flower arrangement in the window. And
Oh, I'm sorry, that was funny.
They basically told me to F off and never contact them again. Like, okay.
So, and we've seen this, and even today, a lot of these groups, one particular group, if they didn't get the evidence, it's false.
Mm-hmm.
If they got it, no matter how ridiculous it looks, it's got to be real. Sounds like you were going through the same thing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it was disheartening because I was like, oh man, they're going to be so impressed that I was able to debunk this. And they're like, you're wrong. Like, okay.
Now, here's the picture. So you went on your own and found a team of folks that were pretty low key, if I remember.
Yeah, I was lucky enough that a couple years after that, I was able to find a local team. It was a group of older people, and so I got some really good mentoring under them. We visited a couple of cool places, but unfortunately, they kind of moved. So a couple of them moved away, a couple of them just moved on with their lives, and so I was left again with nobody to ghost hunt with. And I had thought about starting my own group several times, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want that responsibility.
Groups
But
are problems.
yeah.
Yeah. I have friends that will invite me on theirs, or I will invite them in, but there's no team. It implodes every time.
Yeah, so luckily I did eventually find a group, and I was with them for well over 10 years. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was more like a family than, ghost hunting group. And I mean, we did really well. We got to see a lot of awesome places. But then again, like the first group, everybody just, was kind of getting older. Some people were starting families, and everybody just kind of went their separate ways.
So what are you doing now? You're getting the stories for the blog, so obviously you're busy.
Yeah, well, luckily, paranormal investigation is still the number one priority. I was able to, in 2020, find a new group that had just started. In 2020, I was on Facebook, actually, and found Brian Clary had just started Spectral Research and Investigations, and was looking for members, and sent him a message that day, and we've been investigating together ever since.
I met him at Paranormish last year. He had some incredibly great ideas on historical ghost hunts, and I don't know. He just had some amazing ideas of this.
Yeah, that's how that's why we get along so great with our investigations. Is of course he's getting his PhD in history. I'm a historian, so not only do our investigations really focus on the scientific aspects, but we're one of the few groups that really also focus on the history side. Really do a lot of historical research to try to find the kernels of truth in these stories.
And then he didn't make it this year to the one in Bexley, but you did.
I did. Yep.
How'd you end up coming there and sitting on the stage and capturing the hearts and souls of all those people?
Well, this is my third Haunted Beckley speaking engagement. Well, second speaking engagement. I chose not to speak last year. But I met Scott Worley of Haunted Beckley several years ago. Don't ask me how. I honestly don't remember how. I know I took one of his tours, and he's reached out to me a couple of times about stuff on my blog. So we just kind of, got to be friends and colleagues. I've helped out on a couple of his tours / investigations, and he's got us into some pretty awesome haunted locations.
Yeah.
And every convention he puts on, I'll either have a table or I speak at.
I met him at the first Beckley conference, and then we worked together in the Blennerhaus last year, and I was enjoying working with him. He's on top of things. He's good at it. And I'm hoping to get to work with you soon, because I think you're on top of it also.
Okay.
Well, it's a good team you've got. I met several of them last year. So,
We've cultivated an awesome team. It took a couple years, but we've finally got a core group that's very dedicated to paranormal investigation, that's very dedicated to continuing education in this field, and
to doing it right. Yeah, not the flowers are. It must be a ghost. Yeah, it's. So tell me, you had a story, and folks, goes back to the dangers of ghost hunting. There are dangers in ghost hunting. Don't get me wrong, there really are. And I'm not talking about stumbling over a demon. It's possible, extremely rare, in my opinion. Your team had a whole different issue when you was checking out the Mothman area.
Oh yeah, and honestly, that's not the first or the worst time something like that has happened. So yeah, when we were with Uncovering History, filming for their latest episode, Mothman, and we were out at the Point Pleasant TNT area. We were in the approximate location of where the North Power Plant was. Now, my team wasn't there, but Brian's team was the one that witnessed this. Okay. And there was just a drug deal right there, right there in front of everybody. And so they had to actually leave that area and get out of there.
Quickly, I assume.
Yes, quickly. But like I said, that's not even the craziest thing. A couple of other things that had happened. This is back when I was with my old team. And this is one of the reasons why we stopped having to do residentials in Huntington, unless it was a severe case that, we really vetted first. Awesome, nice family. I know they were experiencing paranormal activity. They went out to get dinner, left us in the house alone for about an hour or so. Had somebody come knock on the door. We thought it was them. Opened the door and they, asked for so-and-so. We're like, well, they're not here. So they're like, oh, okay. And they came back and they're like, well, do you have any of this substance? And we're like, no, sorry. But I mean, you'd be amazed though what people just leave out when we come into their homes.
Yeah.
Don't even bother to try to hide it.
Being a cop allowed me into a lot of homes. People trusted me, but they never left anything like that out. Thank God. So, and you said there was a couple others. You had another adventure like that?
Well, we've had a couple. We had it was another residential, and we were interviewing the family, and it was questions like, okay, tell me about when this incident happened. When did you see the man in the hallway?
Right.
And the one family member would answer, and then the other would be like, well, wasn't that when you took PCP? And we were like, oh yeah, I think you're right. I think that was that night. And we're like,
we're gone. Thanks.
And it's difficult because, like, me personally, just because those substances are in use, I don't think
it doesn't mean
that there's not something going on. But for one thing, it's not safe for us to be there if that's right. Just like a Tuesday night activity. And and I mean, we can't prove anything. We can't really.
Yeah, I get you. Your evidence, well, for me, debunked. I'm gone because yes, it could still be haunted, but there's no way of proving anything unless it comes out and slaps you in the face. So that's the weird ones as far as non-paranormal, but you've had some great experiences you talked about, especially in your childhood home.
Yeah. So that's kind of what started this journey really to the path of being an investigator, is that when I was about 9 years old, we had moved into a house in Winfield, West Virginia. And right away, like, we were experiencing things, mostly seeing a man walk down the hallway. And it got to the point where things were so intense. I was scared. My mom was just oblivious. She's like, yeah, the house isn't haunted. There's nothing going on. But my sister was seeing things. My stepfather was seeing things. all of my friends that would come over to my house, like nobody would want to spend the night because, you know, they would come over for a sleepover and have to call their parents in the middle of the night crying because they saw a man standing over, you know, them while they're sleeping.
And there was no angel dust involved at this
Yeah, no, not this time.
And then you had other experiences in other homes you lived in?
Not a whole lot. My mom's home was really ground zero for the paranormal activity. And this, well, I mean, I kind of lived there mostly off and on until I was like 30. And then it was funny because, you know, my mom was always like, well, it's not haunted. It's not haunted. And you know, I'd be like, because she traveled a lot when I was in middle and high school. And so I'd call her hotel and be like, come home. You know, there's all this stuff going on. She's like, no, there's not. And the day that I moved out, that night, she called me at like midnight and she's like, Theresa, you've got to get back here. There's stuff going on. And I was like, the house isn't haunted, Mom. And I hung up on her.
She deserved it. What kind of action was she seeing, or was you seeing
she was getting a lot of, she kept seeing the man in the hallway. She eventually, I don't know if she just wouldn't admit to it or just didn't see it until a certain point, but she started seeing the man in the hallway. Her big thing was she would be standing there with the front door wide open looking out at, and the doorbell would be sitting there ringing. We had a phone that was ringing somewhere in the house, even though there was no landline. It hadn't been there for several years. Just so many things happened. We saw a lot of apparitions in that house, which was kind of odd. And we kind of joked that it was like a halfway house for ghosts because we would see like the same person like 4 or 5 times. Like everybody in the family would see him and then they would go away and then we'd never see him again.
But something else would come in.
Yeah.
When you say apparitions, you're talking about full-bodied
apparitions.
In color?
Yeah, mostly in color.
Living people who disappear.
About half of them looked like actual real people. The others were more kind of like a projection, or you know, kind of see-through, kind of hazy, like you would expect, like a ghost to be.
And do you have a theory as to what you were seeing there? Was it over a cemetery? Was it?
The land, really, the house was pretty new. It was built in 1976, and we were the second owners. But the man who lived there before us was actually my stepfather's father, and I didn't know it at the time, but he had passed away in the backyard from a heart attack. And he was the one that I was seeing the most. I think he was mostly just residual though, because I always saw him walking down the hallway the same direction. I mean, he never went the other way, never did anything else, just walked down that hallway. But we had, you know, like a couple of people who claimed to be psychics that had visited the house over, you know, for different reasons over the years. And they all kind of thought that there was a portal in the house. And there really wasn't anything on the land before the house was built, before the subdivision was built. It was like farmland. And they surmised that this portal may have opened up because my mom had latent psychic abilities that she had suppressed. And then when she like finally opened it up, it was like a beacon for like...
I get that. Did you have these, did you inherit these abilities?
I don't know, because I wouldn't say that I do, but I don't know. If I have a hunch about something, then it's usually right.
Oh, maybe you did.
I do have a tendency to see things that other people don't see.
All right. Can you describe that for us?
I mean, ever since I was little, I had been seeing these like apparitions, and you know, when I've talked about it, and you know, I don't think that, I don't know, I could just be crazy. I'm not sure.
Well, the other kids coming to visit you was seeing them also.
But when I've talked to people who do claim to have psychic abilities, they usually are like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm seeing too. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe. I've kind of learned over the years, because when I first started in this field, It's not that I didn't believe in psychic ability. I just didn't really think it had a place with what I was doing. But now I kind of have opened my mind up a little bit. It's like, oh, it's one more piece to the puzzle. It's not necessarily anything that we can verify, but I might as well go ahead, if I feel or see something, go ahead and say it, document it. And
yeah, sure. I started out the same way. I wanted the machines, I wanted the lights, I wanted the rods. Didn't believe in psychics because honestly, a lot of them are fake until I met a few real ones. And now they're at the end. Before I left Missouri, I wouldn't go on one without a sensitive because they are very helpful if you can trust them.
Yeah.
So where else have you ghost hunted at?
A lot of the major places around West Virginia, a lot of more minor places. Like I've been to West Virginia State Penitentiary, Trans-Allegheny, all those good places. Old Hospital on College Hill in Williamson is a new one on the scene.
I've had her on the show. She's quite a gal.
Yeah, Tanya's great. We love Tanya.
There's other. What's the fairgrounds?
Lake Shawnee.
Lake Shawnee, yeah. I know you've been there and had some interesting adventures.
I haven't had any interesting stuff there happen. I am actually going there at the end of this month, though, so hopefully I will. But yeah, I know somebody at the talk asked me about it, and about how much of the history that they say is true, and it's kind of half and half. There is some very dark history associated with Lake Shawnee, but not everything is verified with historical documentation.
Now, not finding the documentation doesn't necessarily mean it didn't happen. It's just,
and that's what I tell people. Just because I can't find it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
I believe you brought that up in your lecture about the idea of a kid getting slammed by a swing into a moving truck.
Yeah, and people swear that happened, but I cannot find anything about that whatsoever. And all of the other deaths are there, like the multiple drownings, the child that was hit by a car out, in front of the park. All of that, there's documentation for. Why would they want to cover up this one incident?
Yeah. Well, I've interviewed several people who's been there, and they have had some amazing evidence.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the place has got to be haunted. You're hitting it on some bad days or something.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to going there to myself and really checking it out.
And when are you going back? When was you going back?
May 31st, Friday, May 31st, I'm going to go. Okay. Yeah, and that'll be my first time investigating. The only other time I've been there, we just, kind of visited and walked around a little bit. And it was so funny, like, pulling up, because I was expecting, this Scooby-Doo level haunted carnival situation. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I believe you said that the Ferris wheel was actually a little kiddie thing.
It was so tiny. It was so much tinier. Like, it looks big in pictures until you can see it in person. You're like, oh.
But that doesn't take away from the ghosts, and that's why
it's definitely creepy, and it definitely has a long history of paranormal activity. So I'm excited.
Got a lot of history to it with the Indians and the massacres and a lot of that stuff going on.
Massacre, and so it's got some dark history. So.
It sounds exciting. I hope if you find anything, you'll let me know. We'll get you back on here to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we need to get about 3 people who's been there and have a group discussion on it. That's an idea. We'll have to talk about that. So what are you doing now?
Well, right now, I'm still working on my website when I can.
So you're planning on getting off the blog spot and onto a regular page?
Probably not anytime soon.
Okay.
Blogspot, it's free and it's easy, and it's easy to update, easy to maintain, and it's worked so far for me. So.
Well, I know you got quite a following. Quite a few on Facebook, but even more on your blog spot.
Mm-hmm.
They've been following you for some years now, right?
I've been extremely lucky that I've met a lot of awesome people through them looking for something and found my blog, and I've gotten to know them, and it's opened up a lot of opportunity for me as well. It's got me into some locations that I might not have been able to get in
Right.
otherwise.
Yeah, a friend of mine, I gave him partial credit on an article I wrote years ago in Haunted Times magazine, not long ago. And that got us into a haunted airport museum in Kansas,
Oh,
just
nice.
because his name was on the cover. So, yeah, I mean, a little notoriety doesn't hurt anything. Theresa, I'm going to cut off and run off and do a commercial. Can you hold on for just a
Sure.
second? I will be right back. Wow, I love this kind of talk. We've got the stuff that is different from ghost hunting, but it occurred during a ghost hunt, drug deals and such. And then we've got the real thing with the ghosts and the legends and the history. And guys, how many times have I said, without history, it's just a campfire tale? She mentioned Scooby-Doo. Yeah, without the history behind it, you might as well be an episode of Scooby-Doo, because it's just that it needs that context. Well, speaking of context, I've got to do this so people know that they're helping us pay for this. You check this one out.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us #1 on Paranormal Talk Radio. Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
My friends, the UNX network is growing. It seems like every time I get one of these things to commercial what we've got, to show you what all we've got, they have to redo it because we've got 2 more shows. It's a constant build-up as this network grows, and especially the XCon. And the XCon this year is October 11th, 12th, and 13th. And last year, we was in a hotel in Missouri, Springfield, Missouri, and I was sitting in the back at my table selling books, and there was some other speakers up on the stage. We had a great great time. But while I'm sitting there, I'm watching shadow people cross the room in front of me. We had no idea this hotel was haunted. Nobody had told us. Went to the staff later. They said, "Oh yeah, didn't you know? We thought that's why you came here." The place was crazy haunted. We are actually going to do some stuff with trying to contact the ghosts this year. There's so much neat stuff. Michelle and I will be leading it, and I'll be teaching dowsing rods because that's my favorite. You really got to check this out. Check out the UNX Network. It's free to join. UNXNetwork.com. Down a little bit on the front page. Fill it in. You're a member. And there's so much to gain from doing that. And there's a lot more to gain from talking to our guests. So let's get back to Theresa because I'm really liking her stories. All right. What else? I know you've done the main stuff there, but do you still do individual residences?
Very rarely. We kind of do them on a case-by-case basis if we feel that there's an extreme need. But residentials are difficult in many ways. Even before we kind of stopped doing them for kind of safety reasons, they're very taxing. I often say that in a lot of residential cases that we're not investigators so much as we are social workers, because a lot of the issues that we deal with are not paranormal. And we have a couple people in our group who are mandated reporters, and so we kind of just, unless we really feel that there's a need and we vet the person really, really well beforehand, we've kind of stepped back from doing residentials.
Tell you what, though, some of the residentials I've done has had some amazing evidence to it.
Yeah, some of the best evidence that I've gotten have been from residential cases. I talked about an EVP at the convention that we had got, and that was the most heart-wrenching EVP that I had ever gotten.
That was a child, right?
It was a brother. It was the lady's adult brother.
That's right. That's right. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, so we were called into this location because a lady's brother had just passed away, and she felt that he had been reaching out to her and her family. And we really kind of went into this thinking, she probably just needs some grief counseling. But, we came in and we did the investigation to the best of our ability. We didn't have really anything happen while we were on site. No personal experiences, no crazy, data logging, evidence, nothing really that we're like, oh yeah, this place is definitely haunted. It wasn't until we started going over our evidence that we found an EVP that was just, to me, it was just heartbreaking. I had asked, do you have a message for your sister? Talking to the brother. And even though we didn't have any male members on site that night, you hear a man's voice, and it was, in this country twang, say, "I want to say bye." So we played it for the homeowner, and we didn't tell her what it said. We just played it for her, and we're like, "Okay, tell us what you hear." And she's like, "Oh my God, that's my brother's voice." And she thought it said something like, "I'm here to say bye." We heard, "I want to say bye." So we thought that was, kind of close enough that
the message was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it brought her a lot of closure and comfort. So that made it worth it.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. So the only evidence you got of that whole thing was her brother saying goodbye.
Yeah.
That is touching. That's, I can't call that heart-wrenching. That's actually a positive thing for her.
Yeah, it was. It made us tear up. So
sure. I'm sure. And how many times have you had voices telling you to get out? For some reason, that's the words they love to use. I've had that in multiple places.
We have, yeah. That's a popular one. Get out. We've had that come across not only in EVP form, but spirit box form, obelisk form. I mean, any way you can tell us to get out, it's told us to get out. So we do try to respect that. If we ask, "Do you want us to get out?" and it says, yes, we try to leave that particular area for a little bit, let them cool off, and.
Oh, I agree completely. If I make the offer and they accept it, I'll hold my end of the deal up. I will leave and I will say, I will leave for a while and let you rest if you can make a knock. And then I hear, get out. Okay, that's close enough to a knock for me.
Okay, bye.
So what else have you had on ghost hunts like that that's just really been a shock for you?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, and I've talked to other groups and they've all got similar things. We have been getting some nasty language recently.
Yeah.
You know, we've had cursing before, you know, when I've done this, but it seems like the past couple of years that we've gotten some dirty stuff come across.
I have heard people on here with that evidence. In fact, I've had to bleep some out because it was so bad. But I hadn't experienced that. So what's your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, because, okay, so some of the stuff that we get, it's like, okay, if we're getting it across like the spirit box or, you know, like through Estes method or something, I don't think that this is going to be on the radio no matter what time of night it is. I mean, because it's some really like bad stuff. And we've had slurs. You know, we've had stuff that it's like, oh my gosh, this is not allowed on the radio unless we're picking up some dude like in, you know, his basement or something. Yeah, trying to. But I don't know why things have gotten so crazy lately. There's been a couple of locations that we have investigated where that language kind of lends itself to that.
Yeah.
We investigated the Glen Ferris Inn. And we got some crazy language, but we were in an area that was used as a young men's dormitory at one point. So the kind of questions we were asking, we got responses to.
Well, let me throw an opinion out at you and see what you think. When I started this, and I started this a long time ago, most of the shadow people were wearing hats. And now we're getting them without it. So my opinion was up until 1963, well, actually about 1960 when President Kennedy was elected, all men wore hats. You were not a man unless you had a hat. And after Kennedy, the hat thing kind of went away. So I'm thinking in that case, the men who passed away, and most ghosts would have been older. I mean, you know, but pre-1970 or 80, they were wearing hats because that's how they imaged themselves. They always had a hat. Now, we're dealing with ghosts who at one time in our history, our very recent history, a man would not speak that way in front of a woman. My father would not say that word. He would not say any foul language in front of a lady, in front of my mom, in front of my sisters. And women who spoke that way, he absolutely hated right from the beginning. It was not right. I wonder if we're starting to deal now with more spirits who are more accustomed to that because
the younger generation of spirits.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense to me. And it goes back to what you said before. We've dealt with some of the old school spirits. We've had comments about why women were wearing pants on investigations.
That's unusual.
We've had, you know, entities that refuse to talk to women, especially, you know,
I've seen that happen. Yes.
Like if we come in and, you know, are kind of more dominant than, you know, that we're supposed to be. We've even had entities that refuse to speak to one of our team members who is a person of color. They've said some not so nice things to her.
Really? I can understand that. They're from a different time. I get that. It's just I haven't had that yet, but I have had ones who would not speak while a woman was present.
Yeah.
We had to ask the women to leave before we got anything. Even on the dowsing rods. Others don't want to talk to men. Even though they're male, they only want to talk to the ladies.
Yeah, in Beckley, Scott can tell you this. There's an old bank building with some Civil War activity involved with it, and the man of the house there does not like me.
Oh.
No, he told me to get out. Everybody else could stay, but he wanted me to leave because I was being kind of, well, I wasn't being mean, but I was asking him some questions that a lady probably wouldn't have questioned the man of the house.
Yes. What kind of questions, if I can ask? I'm just curious what was triggering him.
the stories go that he was a Confederate sympathizer when the Union troops came in, and he hid up in the attic while his wife and daughter were downstairs, being verbally berated and in some stories physically assaulted. And I was like, what kind of man hides in the attic while the woman folk are downstairs dealing with that? And he told me to get out.
Now, I had one leave when I accidentally, and I swear to God, I did not mean it this way. He was in charge of the home guard.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 11,000 Confederates coming in. He had 70 men. So he went across the river and linked up with another group and came back. Somehow I made it sound like he ran away from the fight, and he left the room. I mean, the room suddenly got warmer. We heard a bang. He would not talk to us again. He just left the room. So I can get that. Being called a coward in that day would have been a fighting offense, a killing offense. So, oh, wow. That's kind of cool.
Kind of in that same vein, one of my favorite research stories is kind of similar to like the person of color one. So way back when I was still with my other group, we did a residential case. Okay. And it was this young couple who were in college. They're getting ready to finish college. And the woman was white and the gentleman was black. And he was the one that was experiencing all the paranormal activity. And she wasn't experiencing anything. He was having, something like smack him around, he was seeing stuff. And it got to the point where he was questioning his sanity, and it was causing a strain on the relationship because she didn't know how to deal with this because she wasn't seeing or experiencing all this, and he's being tormented. Mm-hmm. And so, we came in there like, well, why is he being targeted? And all it took was a title search. I had done a title search, the apartment, and I wasn't really expecting to find a whole lot because the title search isn't going to tell you who actually lived there. But I was, doing the thorough thing, trying to find, everything I could. So I did the title search before I actually did, like the Polk City directory to see if I could find who lived there. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to get that far because in the title search, it clearly states that when the building was built in the 1930s, that it shall never be rented or owned by a person of color.
Wow.
And that had been overturned when that was deemed unconstitutional. Yes. It wasn't really overturned in the books on the deed until like the 1980s. Mm-hmm. But we brought that to their attention, and he's like, yeah, I told you so. They were getting ready to graduate, so they let their lease expire and they moved to another apartment. They were fine after that.
And was there any more assaults on him after that?
They moved shortly after, so
real quick.
Yeah, things had lessened up a little bit. We don't do like a lot of cleansings unless we're really asked to. Mm-hmm. But we kind of went in there and they're like, "Hey, he's going to move out. Chill out."
Yeah, right. Yeah, wow, that's the kind of stuff that without knowing the history, you've got nothing, and that is the most perfect example I've ever heard. That's an awesome discovery.
Yeah, that was really interesting because you never really find anything super interesting in title searches, and it's like
not usually. But that, like I said, and I said earlier, without history, you might as well be watching Goober and the Ghost Chasers because there's nothing there but a little fun and fright. But with history, you've actually got a storyline. And you found an amazing storyline right there. So what's your plans now? You've got a book coming out.
I do. I've been kind of working off and on for years. Finally decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and get it done. But yeah, it started out as a talk I did several years ago for West Virginia Monster Con with Dave Spinks called West Virginia Cemetery Legends. Okay. And it got a good response. So I was like, I'll just write a book about it.
Good. You've been working on it for a while, but you think you might end it, come up with it this year?
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully it'll be out by September.
Well, give us a couple of the stories out of it. I don't want you to give too much, but
So West Virginia, not only has a lot of cemeteries that are supposed to be haunted, but we also got a lot of cool, like, of the legend tripping legends. And one of those is in Ravenswood. We have a tombstone called the Devil Baby, and it's kind of a really sad case. It's this tombstone for this little baby who was 2 years old when he passed away, but he's got one of the porcelain portraits on the tombstone, and over the years the weathering has worn it down to where it looks like he has like little fangs, and it looks like he has little horns, and the eyes are all kind of crazy looking. And so they say, like, depending on who's telling the story, that on Halloween the you'll hear crying, or on his birthday you'll hear crying, or different dates, but it's always like when the moon is full, stuff like that. um I've been out there a couple of times to kind of investigate, and really there's nothing creepy or haunted about his tombstone. Like I
there's
said,
nothing creepy about a baby with fangs in
I
a
mean,
portrait.
you can tell that it's just the weathering.
Okay,
It does look kind of off-putting if you first look at it and you don't have any context. But then when you like really think about it, it's a sad story. The parents had come to that area to work on the locks and dam that was being built. They
okay.
moved away shortly after, and he's buried there all alone in the city cemetery, and
Mhm.
he's kind of behind the office, and just got this reputation of, oh, a devil baby, because his poor little, portrait just got so cracked and messed up.
Oh, wow, they went through some money to put that portrait on the stone at that time,
Yeah,
just to
it's
leave.
hmm
But so nothing paranormal about it. It's just a
nothing
legend.
nothing that we have found. Yeah, it's just a legend. We think there is something in that cemetery though. I was down there recently with Amber from Amber's Para World, and I mean, we both saw somebody walk right past us, and
Mhm.
heard different things while we were down there. And
Really?
it's hard, sounds are hard to like really distinguish down there because there are a lot of like houses right around the perimeter. But
Okay.
we were hearing like somebody talking like right beside of us, and it was like, oh.
Wow. So there's other things there, and this poor baby is getting the blame for it
Yeah,
because his picture is messed up.
because his poor little picture is almost up.
What else did you find? Give me one more before we go.
In Sistersville, there is a tombstone, and it's got, I don't know if it's an angel or just like a woman, but she's called the Stockingville Lady. And she is also heavily damaged. And the legend is that if you touch the statue, then bad things will happen to you. It's not like the one in Parkersburg where the Weeping Lady, if you touch it, good things will happen to you. This one has a very negative reputation,
Hmm.
and she's very, like I said, she's very very vandalized. And coming all the stories go that her arms are broken off, and they said that the man who broke her arms off was involved in an accident and lost his arm the next day, and one of her eyes is gouged out, and they say the guy that did that, he went blind, like, in the next couple of days. So nobody
That's
wants to go near, and there's really no explanation for why she's so vindictive. I mean, it was
okay.
just a normal family tombstone, but people vandalized it, and they say the people who vandalize her get their due
Get their
justice.
comeuppance, huh? It would be nice if it actually worked that way, though I don't want to blind some poor kid for being an idiot. But all right, so you've got a book coming out. Are you going to be speaking anywhere soon?
I will be speaking in St. Albans the last Wednesday in June at the St. Albans Paranormal Discussion Group. We meet every month at 6 p.m. Last
Okay.
Wednesday of the month. I'll be speaking then. And then I don't speak again until September, and I will be at the Hidden Marietta Paranormal Expo
In
in
Georgia?
Marietta, Ohio,
Oh, okay.
and the West Virginia Penitentiary Paracon. I'll be speaking there as well.
All right. You're busy, and that's great because I love your stories. It's been fun. Just hearing the graveyard ones was worth it. All right. So, Theresa of Theresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State. Thank you for coming on again. And again, you did a great job at Bexley.
Oh, thank you.
Beckley.
Thanks for having me on.
I don't know why I keep saying Bex. It's Beckley. I know. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go, but thanks again, and we'll talk again soon. All right. And I do want to talk to you about getting some of your stories for an article on the Trans-Allegheny.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a lot of stuff. Again, guys, West Virginia is incredible. I guess that Mothman, Flatwoods Monster, UFOs and aliens, Bigfoot, haunted places, the haunted, and I can't remember the name of it right now, 2 ships that were hospital ships in World War II. They're there and haunted. There's Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which, by the way, I'm wearing the shirt from them. Oh, there it is. I'm wearing the shirt from there I picked up. I checked the place out. We got the Moundsville State Penitentiary, the Blennerhassett Hotel. I was in there. The place is crazy haunted. It was a blast. So West Virginia, if you are a paranormal type, cryptids, ghosts, whatever, you need to get there. Another place you need to get to is the UNX Network and the XCon in October. We've got Michelle Roos is going to be there. Her and I are going to be talking ghosts in our different discussions. We've got, I think Tyler will be back talking about conspiracies of the government, secret space fleet maybe. And there's so much other stuff. There is 3 days of lectures here and ghost hunt at one night, at least one of the nights. So much going on. You need to check it out. You need to check out unxnetwork.com because that's where everything starts. And like I said, I was in West Virginia, did a little trip around before I come back, checked out the Lunatic Asylum, amazing place. Going to be writing about that in the magazine. And, which, by the way, I need to bring up, as you are aware, when you join the UNX Network, you get monthly sent directly to your email an electric copy of the UNX magazine. And we do so much with the UNX magazine. I've got articles in there, quite a few. The one on the left there, I did one on the Battleship North Carolina. Do a lot of writing for them. I recently had some on vampires in America and vampires in New Orleans, which that's a whole different weird tale. So there's a lot going on in the UNX Network, and all you got to do to join is go on the website, which is, as you see below, unxnetwork.com. Just pop onto that and fill out a little bit. You're done. That's all there is to it. So why aren't you a member yet? And again, don't forget the XCon, October 11th through the 13th. You can already pick up the tickets for it. And Margie K is running it. Margie will be there. Race Hobbs, my producer, will be there. It's going to be a blast. Last year, we had our costume contest on Halloween. We do a lot. It's really a fun time, and there's not much of the television people there. And if you're a real ghost hunter, you know, these guys you see on TV, it's scripted. It's figured out in advance. I saw a video at Beckley about one of those ghost shows that was there doing a haunted clip, and how much they ignored some evidence, some great evidence, because they were focused on this ending. They wanted this. A man fell down the steps. All the other evidence, irrelevant, because they had their objective. So again, great time, great people. You need to be there, and I need to go. So I want you guys, remember what I always say about stay cool, or, yeah, it's getting to be summer. We're going to say stay cool. Remember to jump on the UNX Network, watch some of these shows, check them out. There's something for everybody. But most important of all, the most important thing I can ask of you, stay spooked.